So I'm just gonna go right into it. Sarah and the crew were rolling me back to the OR in the labor and delivery ward. And on the way there, they stopped like right outside the OR doors, and they're like, "Here, drink this." And they're like, "It's a little shot. Just take it as fast as you can." And I'm like, "Well, what is this?" And they're like, "It's for your Group B strep." And I was like, "What do you mean?" I was like, I don't have Group B strep." And they're like, "Yes, you do." And I was like, "What?" And I was like, I took that test when I was 36 weeks. And I was like, and today, well, that day I was 38 weeks and 1 day as they're wheeling me to the OR. And I had 2 appointments since then. And no one ever told me that I tested positive for Group B strep. And I'm like, oh my gosh. So they're like, just take it like a shot, just pretend you're in spring break, whatever. And I'm like, oh. So I took it, and I'm like, that makes me so mad that like people left me in the dark. They like never told me that. And I don't know. There's a couple other things they never really went over the results of, but I just figured, because they always say, like, especially doctors, they're like, oh, well, if we don't mention it or if we don't call you, it just means that everything's okay. So that's what I thought, and I don't know. I mean, it's Group B strep isn't a big thing. It happens to like a lot of pregnant women, but still, I mean, it's something that I want to like know about. Like, I don't know, whatever. So they wheel me in, and they're like, are you wearing, like, what are you wearing? And they're like, oh, you have jewelry on. And I was like, yeah. I was like, I'm also wearing a bra, and I forget, oh, I have my flower. I always wear a flower, except for today. I'm missing it today. I had to dye my hair. But, she took my flower, and I had a blue one, of course, because it's, it was a boy, and I just so happened to be wearing it. I've been wearing my blue flower, like, every day, because I'm like, I don't know when I'm going to go into labor, whatever. And I don't know. And I was like, oh man, I was like, my hospital bag is in the car, because, they do the footprints as soon as he's born. And she's like, oh no, she's like, they'll do them tomorrow, and you can have them, use your book or use your frames tomorrow. I was like, oh, okay, cool. So they're all like finishing scrubbing up and whatever. It took my necklace, and which I have no idea where my necklace is, my cross. But they took that, and I said, do you want me to take my bra off? They're like, no, it's okay. And I'm like, well, it has metal. And they're like, well, they thought about it, and they're like, no, it's okay. I was like, I could take it off like really quick. And they're like, no, it's okay, you can wear it. So I'm like, okay, whatever. So they transfer me over to the operating room table, and they're like, all right, we're gonna have you sit up. They had me do the spinal, and I'm like, I don't want a spinal. Excuse me, hiccups. But I'm like, I really don't want a spinal. Like, I don't want anything going in my spine. Like, I've heard that, if they stick it in too far, or if they don't stick it in between the right vertebrae, you can be paralyzed, and just other horrible things. And they went through all the risks of C-section and spinal with me, when they were doing the consent sheet. And I was just like, So basically, she had me turned to my side with my legs hanging off the table. And my midwife, Sarah, she's like, okay, she's like, it's okay. She's like, just put your arms around me, hunch your shoulders forward and just lean. And she's like, and, they basically, like, counted my vertebrae. And he, like, rubbed it down with the betadine or whatever. And, I don't know, and then, what was it? There was one part where she was like, okay, she's like, now drop your shoulders. She's like, you can hold on to my hips if you need to. So I'm sitting there, and I'm, like, trying to squeeze the life out of her, but I was, like, really scared. And, I don't know. And I'm sitting there talking. I'm even making jokes and everything. And she's like, are you okay? She's like, you're taking this really well. And I was like, actually, I'm really scared. I said, I'm totally against C-sections. And I said, this is, like, completely bogus. I said, but I did have a backup plan in my, my birth plan. So this is that backup plan. And it's still in my birth plan, so it's still okay. So, and, but I was holding on to her. And he's like, okay. He's like, you're going to feel a little pinch. And I moved my arms back up around her shoulders. And I was like, okay. I was like, I can do this. I can do this. And she's sitting there talking to me, like, talking to me, making sure everything's okay, comforting me. And then I was like, ooh, because that's a really big needle. And then he, like, did, like, some other part, like, it felt like he went in twice. And I'm not sure if they do or if it was just stinging in, like, a different location. But he had to make sure, like, everything was there. And I'm in so much pain still because of my hip and my back. Excruciating pain. And then they're like, okay, they're like, well, we're going to have you put your feet up here. They said, we need you to hurry up and, once he was done with all that, he said, we need you to hurry up and get back on the table how you're supposed to be and help us get you situated before you go numb. And literally, as fast as it took for me to put my legs back up on the table, and they helped me because, like I said, I was in so much pain with my hip and my back. I literally felt a warm feeling, and it went down my back, and it went, as soon as it went to my lower back and to my hip, I was just like, huh. I was like, yeah, that's nice. And I was like, that is what I've been needing, like, the last 3 weeks of this pregnancy. But the pain that I had that day, the day that he was born, you know, I only ever had hip pain. I didn't have back pain like this. This was new. Hold on. I love you so much, baby. But yeah, the back pain thing was new, and just feeling that pain literally melt away was the most amazing feeling. Like, if I wasn't about to have someone cut open my uterus, I would have felt that it was, like, orgasmic. So they laid me down, and then, like, everything went completely numb. It literally felt like my whole body was jello, and he must have did it, like, really good, because after a point, I felt it, like, usually it's from, like, the waist down, but I started feeling it go up, and I'm like, I can't feel my boobs, and then I started feeling, like, my neck and my collarbone, and, like, my shoulders go numb, my arms were numb, and then it started feeling like it was coming up here, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I was like, I feel like my throat is closing, or, like, I'm like, you know, that swelling feeling, and I was like, I don't know, I was like, is that normal? And she's like, well, he probably just did it really good, you know, don't worry about it. She's like, they're almost ready to, you know, make their incision, and, like, how they say on TV, okay, you're gonna feel pressure, like, they said it to me too, and I didn't feel any pressure. I just felt like wiggling. I felt like my body wiggling back and forth like a bowl of jello, and I didn't feel any pressure at all, ever. I threw up when they were doing the C-section. Actually, it was, when was that? I'm sorry, I threw up in the room before they took me to C-section. And then when it took me for my C-section, I threw up after the baby came out. And they're like, okay, they're like, it's funny because he was head down. He's been head down. And the last couple days, or last week or so, he's been sunny side up, which is he's been facing me instead of having his head face my backbone. And his chin was, like, up. So the back of his head was digging into my spine, and I thought maybe that's why I was hurting. But the day before, I had a midwife appointment, and she said that he's not sunny side up anymore. He's exactly how he should be. And I was like, oh, I was so excited. So excited to have a vaginal delivery. Oh, wow. But, so, I don't know. So they're like, okay, they're like, oh my god, they're like, he's turning. Like, that's what I heard them say. Like, not the oh my god part, but they're like, oh, he's turning. Oh my gosh, he's moving all over the place. And they're like, he's one active baby. And, like, if I had $1 for every time I heard that during my pregnancy, because he moves all over the place all the time. And that's why I was so concerned that morning that he wasn't moving at all. And, I don't know, so basically he was head down. When they cut me open, he turned transverse. So head down, then he turned transverse, exactly horizontal across me. And then, I forget, like, he must have turned, and then he was breech. And a foot came out first, and then his butt. And I don't know why, but it still took a couple minutes, and then his head came out. And they're like, your son is here, your son is born, he's born. And I'm like, oh, I started crying because I was so happy, and then I was like, I just stopped, and I started to listen, and I'm like, oh my god, I don't hear crying. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, I don't hear crying. And I'm like, what's wrong, what's wrong? And I'm looking at Sarah, and I'm like squeezing the life out of her hand, and I'm like, Sarah, what's wrong, what's wrong? And I guess they just had to give him some positive pressure there, some positive ventilation. And all of a sudden I heard him cry, and it was like the most unique cry I've ever heard in my life. It was nothing like any other baby's cry in the entire world. And now he cries like other babies do, but just that first initial cry, never heard anything like that. Never, never ever. And I was just like, oh, my baby. And I couldn't see his face. I couldn't see anything. And I was just like, my son, my baby, my baby. And I was so excited. And then she was like, do you want to see him? And I was like, yeah, I want to see him. So she moved the blue curtain that's hanging in front of you. And one thing, most C-sections, they tie you down. But because I was so numb, I asked them not to. That's something they don't usually tell you. But they do put, like, the air compression things on your legs to, you know, keep your blood circulating while you're completely numb. That way you're, like, you know, for blood clots and shit like that. So anyway, I'm like, you know, like, strapped to a table, except I wasn't strapped. They were nice enough, but I had so many lines on me. I had EKG, all this stuff, and I just kept telling them, like, are you sure everything's okay? I feel like my heart is going to beat out of my chest. And she's like, you're okay. And I looked up at the monitor and my pulse was like 116, which actually wasn't that bad, because sometimes, like, during my pregnancy, I felt like I was out of breath and I felt like my heart was going to beat out of my chest, and it was like 180. So, and that's like really crazy. I don't know if I had SVT or not, but I don't know. So I think I was just scared, and that's why my heart was racing there, and she said it was fine. I know, like, doing EMS, they always say for an adult it should be between 60 and 100, but whatever. So Sarah was like, oh, you want to see him? She moved the little blue curtain a little bit, and it's so weird because, you know, I guess my perception's off, but it sounded like he was on the other side of the room, like kind of catty corner, like if you're on the table, like maybe like 2 o'clock, like that corner. But it turns out that he was actually like behind me almost, well, not technically, not behind me, but like sort of behind me to the right, like only by like a couple inches or whatever. And to the right, he was like 7 feet away from me, and I was like, and I could see the tip of his head, and she's sitting there like cleaning him off, you know, the ball with syringe, getting rid of all the extra fluid, checking out his orifices, making sure everything's like fluid free, and I'm just sitting there, and then I watch her cut the cord, and I was upset because I wanted, you know, delayed cord clamping, but this is an emergency C-section, you can't have it like that. And they had told me before my C-section that he was going to have to go to NICU, and I cried hysterically because that was the one thing that I knew was going to eat me alive, is seeing my baby in NICU. And I don't know, she's like, yeah, she's like, you know, if he's okay, you know, we could bring you to him later, but he's definitely going to be in NICU for a little bit. She's like, at least a couple of days. You know, it just depends on how he's going to be. So when he came out, aside from the positive pressure, you know, having to assist him with breathing a little bit, she said that he was good. And, you know, once they did the APGAR was 7.9. I don't know how you read that, if it's 7.9, 7.29, 7.9, whatever, that's what it was. I have to Google a little bit because I used to know APGAR. They taught us that in EMT Academy, but I forget. I've never delivered a baby doing EMS, so never had to use it. But yeah, I'm trying to think. My mind is in a million places. I have like a terrible headache. It's hot over here too. So anyway, so after she cut the cord and dried him off and everything, she rolled him up, she put a little hat on him, she weighed him. They said, and I heard her loud and clear, 6 pounds, 15 ounces. And they said he was 19 3/4 inches. Apparently, even though 3 people told me he was 6 pounds, 15 ounces, he was only 6 pounds, 13 ounces. I realize it's only a 2 ounce difference, but when I've already posted on Facebook how much my baby weighs, I kind of feel like a liar. I'm a very honest person, so I don't like to, like, you know, bend the truth or anything like that. And obviously it was unintentional because they just misinformed me, but yeah, I don't know, I was just telling everybody that he was 6'15" when he was really 6'13", and someone was just misinformed, or a couple people actually, and they misinformed me. And yeah, so they brought him over, and they're like, you want to see him? You want to hold him? And they put him on me, like kind of skin to skin, and she moved my gown down a little bit, and I just looked at him and I was like, oh my gosh, like, I can't believe I have a son, and like, I still can't even believe I got pregnant. And I'm like looking at him and I'm like, well, you know, the whole pregnancy I was like, are you sure I'm pregnant? Like, even when I was like really pregnant, I was like, are you sure there's a baby in there? And even like the ultrasound, I'm like, are you sure this wasn't pre-recorded? And then when he came out, I was like, are you sure he's mine? Because there was a gown in front of me, like, there's no proof that he came out of me, you know? And I don't know, it's just funny. And I was just so shocked and amazed, and I was just full of emotion, and I didn't cry when I was looking at him. I cried when he was born. And maybe I did cry, like a little tear or something, when I was like holding, well, I couldn't really hold him because of all the things they had on me, but I did the best I could. And then she did skin to skin a little bit, and then she like she's like, here, she's like, kiss him. And I was like, she like smashed him into my face, and I had like, I remember it was sticky for the longest. I had like a little bit of his amniotic fluid on my nose, which I thought was kind of gross at the moment, but then I was like, oh, my baby, I have his amniotic fluid. And I don't know, so I'm gonna make another video. I know I'm all cheesy, but I'm gonna make another video. It's getting close to that mark. Thanks guys, bye.